For my second hour alone, I was in Cologne, Germany, and I had wanted to go to a Chinese restaurant and try to talk to either the owners or someone in there in Chinese to practice and also to learn more about why they would be in Germany. Unfortunately, when I tried to go to the Chinese restaurant I had in mind, they ended up being Vietnamese instead, and I had to find somewhere else. The second place was closed, so I gave up on that idea and had to find something else to do. I remembered seeing a music store when we were having our tour, and I went back and found that to see if I could get a walk-in lesson because that's an experience I really wanted to have. Unfortunately, when I got there, even though there were people inside, the door was locked and they kind of watched me awkwardly have to walk away after trying the door. I wasn't sure what to do after that, so I started wandering, but I knew I had to come up with something because that was the only time I was able to do an hour alone. But fortunately, I passed by a bookstore, and that's an experience I always love to have. So I went inside and started browsing. I wanted to talk to the store owner, but he was talking to some other customer in German and seemed pretty engaged in the conversation, so I wasn't going to interrupt. I waited for him to leave, but after a while, I actually began doubting that the shopkeeper even spoke English and almost chickened out and left, but I decided to wait it out and help work up the courage to start a conversation as well. When the other customer finally left, I started the conversation by first asking him if he spoke English, but then asking him to help me find a book for the journey back to Maastricht. And when we started talking, I mentioned where we were from and what we were doing, and he told me that he had actually done research in Detroit on his ancestors who had immigrated there and founded a town northeast of Lansing. It was cool to find that kind of connection with someone across the world. And this experience was important because I think it really showed my improvement from the first hour alone, where I struggled to even come up with any sort of question to talk to people I didn't know. And this time I was able to actually have a whole conversation and make connections with a stranger. What I really realized about the world was actually pretty cliche because I kind of discovered more of the truth behind It's a Small World. I'm finding random connections with people everywhere I go, like how the shop owner studied about his ancestors in Michigan, and I found out that a friend I have from the Netherlands for about 3 years now is actually also studying at Fontys University, but just in a different city. And about myself, I realized that even though I've always prided myself in keeping an open mind and not making assumptions about people, I really do make more assumptions than I realized, such as how I had doubted that the shopkeeper spoke English. But he ended up not only speaking great English, but having a lot to tell me as well. And as for global competencies, I improved adapting to situations of change, which I have been doing a lot on this trip, and also undertaking tasks that were familiar because I had to find a new hour alone experience, and also I'm not typically one to start conversations with people I don't know. This is something I'll be keeping in mind in my future relationships and also helping students in my classrooms with their relationships to each other.